Thanks, man. Appreciate it. All right. What's up, U of M? How are we doing tonight? Good? All right, I'm Phil. I run a startup called Homie, and we help students meet alumni to figure out what they want to do with their lives. So tonight, we're going to be talking about the real value of college. And I'm going to start off with some stats. Because college used to be the great equalizer, right? It used to be the opportunity for a first-generation family or immigrant family to move up into the middle, upper middle, or even upper class. Now, what we've really found is that it's a recipe for underemployment. It's a recipe for student debt. And 44% of Americans are underemployed. And what that means is that in 2 weeks, when you're all graduating, 1 in 2 of you isn't going to have a job that actually requires a college degree. And so you really start to ask yourself, why am I taking out all these loans? Why am I actually doing college? And so there's currently $1.5 trillion in outstanding student debt. And this is something that's very close to my heart because I also graduated with student debt. And when we started Homie, we didn't take salaries. We were barely surviving. And so the idea of paying off student loans was the last thing on my mind. And so I didn't. And I just kind of let them chill. Unfortunately, student loans don't chill. And what happened was those student loans got sent to a collection agency. And so every day, 9 a.m., 12 p.m., and 3 p.m., I would get calls from South Carolina, from this collections agency, and I would just kind of like hang up on them and not say anything. And then my credit score started to go down, and frankly, it was just this soul-crushing feeling of like, this sucks. Why? And so, look, we know that college is expensive. We don't need to talk about that. But let's talk about why it got this way. So in the 40s, we had the GI Bill. And after World War II, the US government basically said, you should all go to college. And you should go and get a college education, enter the workforce. And so it was this new generation of Americans that went to college. Then in the 60s, we have the space race. Russia launches Sputnik. The US says, we got to do something. And so studying STEM became a patriotic thing. And it further reinforced this desire that go to college, it's a way to a better life. Fast forward to 2019, and now we've got parents paying $500,000 just to get their kids into college. For any of you who don't know who this guy is, he's part of the Varsity Blues scandal. Basically, a ring of parents paying a ton of money to Photoshop their kids' faces onto athletes and pretend that they're athletes to get them into college. Ridiculous. So what we really want to talk about, though, is what is the value of a college education? Because it has to be more than the 8.5 by 11 piece of paper that you get during graduation. And the first thing we start off with is, why do you go to college? Well, it's to get a job. This is how campus recruiting works. Right? So how it works is you have a hiring manager within a company. That person decides, I want to go and hire someone. And so they go to the recruiters, and the recruiters will say, okay, what kind of person do you want to hire? Well, I want these skill sets. I want them to be smart, sociable, et cetera. The recruiters will then go to the college, and they've built relationships with a bunch of target schools, so they know which ones they always go to, and it works for them. Then the colleges will put on these career events, campus recruiting events, info sessions. And so you as a student will go in there and you'll talk to the recruiters and they'll tell you to go and apply online. And you apply online and your application goes through what's called an applicant tracking system. And then they filter you based off of keywords, major, GPA, et cetera. And then you get interviewed by the recruiters and then you go and talk to the hiring manager. Kind of a lengthy process. So we talked about black holes earlier today. It was discovered a couple months ago, but I think the first black hole is actually your online job application, because that's really what happens, right? Essentially, you're applying to the same jobs that all these thousands of people are applying to, and you would like to think that someone's going through and looking at your resume and reading your cover letter because you spent a lot of time on it, but in reality, you're really just getting filtered by keywords. That's rough. So what do? Networking. How many people here love networking? Cool. So networking for me, it reminds me of, it's kind of like, emailing strangers and asking for jobs, or like going to these career fairs wearing your dad's old suit that doesn't really fit you very well, and like trying to shake hands and network and get business cards. And it's definitely not what I want to be doing on a Saturday night, right? And so then we start to ask ourselves, is there a way to make networking less awkward? right? It's less soul-sucking, more about getting to know people and really hearing their stories and building real meaningful relationships. So my story starts in Southern California. Child of immigrants, Chinese parents. They came, classic immigrant story, right? They came to America with nothing in their pockets, worked really hard so I could go to school, and my job was to study really hard and get into a good college. And so I did that. I was also a tennis player, so I was recruited to play tennis at a small liberal arts college called Carleton College in Northfield, Minnesota. Shout out Carleton College, anyone? Okay. And so I go to Carleton, and it was weird because there was all this talk about going to college, but no one actually told you what to do when you got to college. And so I just went and gravitated toward the job that would pay the most and sounded the coolest, and that was investment banking. And I started applying for jobs on Wall Street and very quickly realized that it's really hard to get a job on Wall Street, especially when you're coming from Northfield, Minnesota. Right? And so I didn't have an uncle at Goldman Sachs who could just pass my resume. And so I just started emailing people, alumni who had gone to my school, who were working on Wall Street. And I got this phone call with this dude named Hikaru Teramoto, 2006 econ major, and he was the executive director at Morgan Stanley. And I was like, wow, this guy's gonna talk to me on the phone, so excited. And so we get on the phone, and he asks, what do you do on campus? I was like, oh, I'm on the tennis team, I'm an econ major, and I work at the rec center. And he's like, oh, that's cool, I used to work at the rec center. And he's like, does Mickey Showers still work there? I was like, yeah, Mickey's my boss. And he's like, cool, do you read the Wall Street Journal? Yes. What is the S&P trading at? 1580. All right, send me your resume. That was it. And so that turned into a couple more interviews, and I got flown out for a super day, and I started off as a summer analyst at Morgan Stanley on the high-frequency trading desk. Super duper exciting. You can tell how excited I was. And then they found out I played tennis. And so my job went from actually doing anything to going and wining and dining hedge fund clients and just playing tennis with senior management and going for a steak and a bottle of red afterwards, and it was awesome. And for me, Hong Kong was this world, frankly, I had never been there, but it was this world that I'd always dreamed of, right? To be the top of this skyscraper looking down on the view, and to have this opportunity to work on Wall Street. But a part of me was, is that really what I want to do for the rest of my life? And the answer was, I don't know. And so I did what every liberal arts major does. I took some time off of school, and I moved to China, and I worked in a bunch of hole-in-the-wall restaurants and cooked Chinese food for a while. And it was kind of like Eat, Pray, Love, Chinese Dude edition. Yeah. And so I'm out there cooking, and I spent a couple months out there, and I knew I wasn't going to be a chef. And so I thought back on it, and every internship or job, or really any career opportunity I'd ever gotten came from a Carleton alum. And so I rounded up some friends from Carleton, and we started working on this idea of, what if we could put students and alumni in a community online, and just good things will happen. And so we didn't have any money, and so we hit up a Carleton alum, and she's an English major. She's also a billionaire. Yeah, English majors can be billionaires too. And so she wrote us our first $25,000 check, and we rented out a house in uptown Minneapolis where we lived and worked together, trying to build the first versions of Homey. And then, about in October of last year, things really started to change, right? We started getting traction, their users were growing exponentially, and what was happening was the Carleton football team was using Homey as part of their 4 for 40 initiative. And what that means is, you play 4 years of ball at Carleton, that'll take care of you for the next 40 years of your life. And these are the alumni who are gonna help you out. And 10% of our user base at Carleton College, of the 1,500 plus users, 10% of them were football players. And so this one football player, graduated class of '85, economics major, went on to become the CEO of Barclays. It's a big multinational bank. And so we got on the phone with him. And the first thing I said to him was, hey, I don't know if you remember this, but I emailed you 6 years ago trying to get a job or an internship at Barclays. And you took the time to talk to me on the phone, and you opened some doors for me, and it was like really, really cool. Thank you. And he says, I don't remember that, but I want to invest in your company. I was like, oh, okay, we'll take that. And so he also says, I want you to come to London and visit London, and I want to meet you, and you can stay with me and my wife. And so next thing I know, I'm on a flight to London. And I'd never been to London, much less Europe. And so I ended up show up on this guy's doorstep, and he opens the door, and I spend a week with him and his wife at their beautiful home in Chelsea. And there were 2 other people staying. One was this world-class cellist who played the $10 million Stradivarius, and another one was a refugee from Ethiopia. And I'm like, look, you guys are letting me stay at your house. Let me whip you up some super dank Chinese food, because I can do that. And so we have this dinner party, and the cellist is playing Bach in the living room. They invited a bunch of friends, and I'm just sitting there like prepping this meal, thinking this is the most important meal I'm ever going to cook in my life. And I started thinking, and it was like I spent my whole life trying to get a seat at the table, right? Trying to put myself in a position where I could be successful. But like, what does success really mean? And so all these questions started popping up in my head, and I realized that my career had really just been a product of cooking Chinese food and playing tennis. Like, those are the 2 things I was good at. But these people had taken a chance on me, and they'd given me an opportunity. And so I want to talk really quick about the future of work, what's going on after graduation. McKinsey estimates that by 2030, 10 to 30% of jobs are going to be displaced by technology, whether that's artificial intelligence, automation, robotics, you name it. Things are about to change. And what's scary about that is that it's not the numbers, it's the anywhere from 10 to 30. We have no idea what's going to happen. So companies, Fortune 500 companies in the Twin Cities, they used to go to 5 years ago, they used to go to the campus and they would hire business analysts, people who could build Excel models and could talk to people. You had technical skills and you could talk to people, you're a great fit, we'll pay you 60, 65, 70K a year, and you'll be business analysts. A couple years ago, they realized, why are we hiring all these business analysts if we can just hire a handful of developers, write a script, automate that entire process, and save a ton of money? And so now, if you're a finance, business, marketing major sitting in the business school and you've spent 4 years studying for those jobs don't exist anymore. Sorry to say that. And so what is important? Like, how do we deal with this? And the answer is that you have to learn how to learn. And I know this sounds like liberal arts, but it's actually really important. You learn how to think, right? You learn how to present your ideas in really clear and polished ways, and you learn how to support your ideas in arguments and whatnot. You also learn how to write, because some people forget how to write these days. Number 2, you learn how to build real relationships that are going to fundamentally change your career. Whether that's with your peers or with alumni, you learn how to talk to someone, hear their story, and really get to know them. And lastly, college should be a place where you can learn who you are and work towards being the person you want to be. Because college shouldn't last just for 4 years. College should last for the rest of your life. And I think that when colleges reach out to alumni and ask for money, they should be thinking about, what is this person? Are they a piggy bank, or are they a real person with a real career whose story could change the lives of so many students? Thank you.